Well, good evening to all of you. Welcome to YearLEAD 2023. How are we doing? Yeah. It is hard to believe it's our third year doing this. I'm very excited to share with you this evening the past, present, and future of the church. Before we get too far into tonight, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize a few individuals who went over and above and making tonight as enjoyable as it has been so far. For starters, I want to recognize Brian Duncan, James Fleming, Mark Tice, Aaron Nelson, Lisa Mason, and Rebecca. Yes. The food was not pizza. Amen? Praise God. It was really, really good. They did an incredible job, superb job. And in the history of our faith, so many important developmental and formational things have happened over a meal. And so we are grateful for their service to us. I also want to recognize the staff here at City on a Hill for their involvement in organizing this and thinking deeply about the ministries that God has entrusted them with. You're going to get to hear from several of them tomorrow morning. We're going to do a general assembly tomorrow, first thing right after worship, where you're going to kind of hear a ministry update from all of the different ministry heads. I'm very much looking forward to that because I think oftentimes as leaders, we sort of get siloed into, unintentionally, the ministry area where we serve and sometimes miss on what God is doing in other areas and sometimes aren't even aware of how those ministries work. And so this year we're excited to do that to begin the Saturday morning portion, just to give you a snapshot into what those ministries are doing. I also want to give a special recognition to Morgan Phillips and RJ Andrade. Yeah. They put a lot of time and effort into several aspects of the media that you are going to see tonight. They, alongside Kelsey Barker, have worked really hard on some really exciting things that I am very excited to show you. Last but not least, I want to thank you for being here. The success of this church, the mission of this church, the vision of this church, it relies solely on the will of the Father through the Son by the Spirit. But we recognize that His will is expressed not only through the preaching ministry here or through the worship services here at City on a Hill, but through the collective local body here, through you. And we don't move forward, we don't impact lives, we don't have any measure of success without you. And I mean that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for spending your Friday night and hopefully your Saturday morning gathering with the rest of the leaders here to talk about some of these exciting things that we are going to be discussing. I want to begin tonight by reminding us of where our success comes from. This is, after all, a leadership conference, right? And we're going to talk about things. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. There are things that I have been waiting for months to discuss. Things that are really exciting for me to be able to share with you, that we're going to finally unveil. Things that we have thought about and prayed about. And it's one of those nights that, if, at least in my opinion, where afterwards I walk away feeling really excited about everything that is happening in this church. And so it's easy to talk about this stuff and be tempted as leaders in this church to respond like this. Right? Yeah. So I want to celebrate tonight. I want to be excited about the things that are happening tonight, but I also want to orient us to the reason for why we have had and will have any kind of success here at City on a Hill. And I think we find that reminder, that orientation in a very unlikely passage that you've probably never read in your quiet time before, in 1 Chronicles chapter 29. 1 Chronicles 29 is the last chapter in the book of 1 Chronicles, and it's a transitional moment for the kingdom of Israel. David has reigned for a very long time at this point, but he's drawing near to the end of his life, and the people of God realize that. And so the nation of Israel, they're not only anticipating their next king, Solomon, to begin his reign, but they're also anticipating the construction of this temple that they have been talking about and praying for years, for decades. So it's this momentous time at the end of chapter 29. They've gathered together. David is there. They've pulled together a ton of resources for the construction of the temple. Gold, fine woods, fine metals. There's tons of excitement in the room. There's this huge sense of accomplishment. Look where we are. We're about to do this. And David stands before the assembly and he prays. And this is his prayer in 1 Chronicles chapter 29, starting in verse 10. It says, "Therefore David blessed the Lord in the presence of all the assembly. And David said, 'Blessed are you, O Yahweh, the God of Israel our Father, forever and ever. Yours, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty. For all that is in the heavens and in the earth is yours. Yours is the kingdom, O Lord, and you are exalted as head above all. Both riches and honor come from you, and you rule over all. In your hand are power and might, and in your hand is to make great and to give strength to all. And now we thank you, our God, and praise your glorious name.'" David stands before this assembly, before a united nation, really, a unified nation with all of the resources in the world made ready for this construction of this beautiful temple. Many of these resources of which have been given sacrificially by the people in that room. And David stands up in this moment of triumph, and he confesses something that I believe we must confess as well. We are nothing. Everything that we have, O God, that we give to you comes from you. Anything we have done that has been beneficial is only because you've done it through us. We are nothing. And so we thank you, God, and we praise your name. My prayer for us is that we would never forget that. That we would never forget that it is the Lord who rules over all. It is the Lord who establishes his people. We are nothing without him. Our theme tonight is the past, present, and future of City on a Hill. And I want to say two things up front. Number one, I'm going to be talking about three kind of, I think, pretty major things, exciting things throughout this talk. If at any point you have questions concerning some of the things that I am saying, I'm going to ask you to text your questions in to a specific number. And that number is 209-703-8231. Don't worry, we're going to put it up on the screen for you. 209-703-8231. We're going to do a little bit of Q&A at the end if necessary, wherein you will be able to ask questions again, and I'll kind of qualify that before we get to that point. But if you think of something and you're like, man, I really want to know about this, you can text it to that number. It will come to my phone. That's not my phone, by the way, so don't try to call me later on it. And if you want to call me later, I'll give you my number, but don't call me at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and unless it's an emergency, and then I'm willing to answer. That's the first thing. Questions, go to that number. Second thing is we're not really going to deal with the present tonight. You know, the theme is past, present, and future. Tomorrow morning, as I mentioned, at the General Assembly portion, we're going to have each of the ministry heads come up and give a present sort of state of the union of each of these ministry groups. And so we're not really going to deal too much with the present. Tonight is committed to really a couple of big things in the future, but I believe in order to look to the future, we have to look back to the past first. So much of what makes us unique as a church comes from our past, a past that not everybody in this room is really connected with. I did this a couple of years ago, but I think it'd be fun to do it again. Stand up for me if you have been coming to this church for at least 3 years. Everyone stand up. If you've been here for 3 years, I'm going to ask you to stand. Good. What about 5 years? Stay standing if you've been here for 5 years. What about 10 years? Stay standing if you've been here for 10 years. 15 years. How about that? We're still up. Yeah, you're still up. My wife doesn't remember dates well. It's fine. What about 20 years? 20 years. How many of you have been here for 30 plus years? Give them a round of applause. Some of you have been here a really long time, and you know our story. You've been an integral part of it, but some of you have only been here since I've been the pastor here. We had a discovery class. James, you'll get a kick out of this. We had a discovery class a couple of weeks ago, and it was in the structure video that James does that portion of. And after we got done with the video, there's sort of a Q&A time. And the woman said, after several questions had been asked, she said, "So who is that guy?" We were like, "Wait, what?" But that just shows you that there are people here who have not been here for a very long time that really don't know the history of the church. And so I want to begin tonight with the past, the importance of it, how it has not only shaped me, but many of you in this room, and hopefully how it will begin to shape many of you who are newer to the church as well. When I first came to this church, the thing that struck me more than anything else was the preaching here. It impacted me in a way that no other church service had ever impacted me. In fact, it was under the preaching of Dr. Reeves that I was saved, that the Lord saved me. I will never forget the first morning here, the first sermon, the way in which the Lord stirred my spirit to eventually believe. And there's a lot of things that our church does very well that we've been known for decades, and the preaching ministry here has always been near the top. Alongside the Freedom Group Ministries, I would say that preaching and Freedom Group Ministries are the things that have sort of made our church stand apart above all other things. There are so many sermons from the past 16, 17 years that have shaped me as a young Christian. When we first arrived in 2007, the church was at the time called Celebration Fellowship, and I can still remember those sermons. James did a verse-by-verse study through the book of Colossians in a series called It's All About Jesus. Never forget that. I'll never forget the study that we did of Psalm 23. If you were here for that, you remembered it was titled, "Bah and Other Sheep Sayings." And as a young 21-year-old new believer, I memorized the entirety of Psalm 23 because of that sermon series. I had never heard anyone preach like James. I'd never heard anyone say the things that he was saying and the manner he was saying them. Last year, we began remodeling our offices, and we used that time to clean out some of the old stuff. Some of it we kept, some of it we got rid of. We came across a couple boxes of cassette tapes of sermons going all the way back to 1982. Now, of course, now we offer our current sermons online on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. The videos of those sermons are obviously captured from our live stream. We put those on our YouTube channel. But years before that, if you remember, we had a CD booth in the back, right where the TV is now, called the Truth to Go. And you could pay a couple dollars and you could get the sermon CD from that day, or you could order previous sermons as well that you could give to your friends. Well, before my time here, because it was always CDs when we came, 2007 is when we came to this church. Before that, they had cassette tapes. Now, there were probably only a handful of you in here, if that. Say again? Before that, it was 8-track? You did sermons on 8-tracks as well? That would be, I don't think we did that. I think 82. I don't think you were doing that before that. There's probably a handful of you in here who have a tape player where you could even access some of those sermons. And so Kelsey asked me, what do you want to do with these? It's several boxes of these tapes. And I thought to myself, we can't throw this stuff away. This is our history. This is our heritage. And so we began looking into digitally transferring these sermons. And for the past several months, Kelsey and our creative team began restoring them and EQing the audio on them, doing what was necessary to make them available again for our church. And so it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you for the very first time tonight, the Landmark Podcast.
I believe that Cornerstone Baptist Church has the seeds of this kind of attitude that's about to sprout, that could sprout very easily. But wouldn't it be great to have a body of believers here, a worshiping body of believers, an active body of Christ, where the director of the bank or the digger of ditches felt equally as comfortable and welcome? Wouldn't it be great? Isn't that what the gospel is all about? Isn't that what James is talking about? To have a body of believers where the aristocratic nobleman or the anonymous nobody stand on the same ground, feel just as comfortable, worship the same Lord Jesus, and put loving arms around one another because of Jesus, who broke down the barriers. of the things that we've realized through the years that has finally kind of been put down on paper is that we as a group, and me as a pastor, we are very conservative theologically. But along with that statement, there's another thing about us that has evolved that's a little bit strange, because these two don't usually go together. Although we are very conservative theologically and biblically, we are very non-conservative in methodology. And if you've been in churches very much through your life, you know that those two don't usually live together. We preach and teach the Scripture, but oftentimes we will package that in a very non-traditional package.
That banner states our vision statement, the vision that God has given us as a church. Let me read it to you. Reaching the disinterested doubter and the disenfranchised believer in an atmosphere of acceptance, blending innovative methods, biblical values, contemporary worship, and practical teaching to meet the needs of people where they are. That vision statement was written in 1992 when we transitioned this church from the format, which was somewhat of a traditional format, to the format that we are operating in and doing ministry in today. That vision statement was born when we translated the church into a hospital.
The mission of City on a Hill really is becoming a safe place for people to let go of their secrets, providing a safe process to grow in emotional and spiritual maturity in Christ, developing disciples in the truth of God's Word, and loving one another as a witness to the world. That really is the mission. We want to be about a very specific type of help, hope, and healing. A type of help, hope, and healing that comes from Jesus and only Jesus. Not a temporary help, not a temporary hope, not a superficial healing. We're all about the help, hope, and healing of Jesus. Starting this weekend, there are roughly 50 to 60 sermons that go from the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. Many of them are Dr. Reeves. Some of them are the voice of Alan McBrayer. Others are names of men who have been given the opportunity to preach here through the years. One of them, I thought this was interesting. I texted James because I'd never heard this name before. I've been around 17 years. I know a lot of the people even that preceded me that weren't here when I got here, just from hearing stories. And one of them was a man named James Lewis. And so I asked James, I said, who is this guy? And he said, hey, he was a seminary student that stepped in on a morning to preach for him. We only figured out his name because the next week in that sermon, Dr. Reeves thanks James Lewis for stepping in because Laura had gone into labor with Zach. This was in 1985. And so it's just really, I think, an amazing opportunity that our church has now because of the technology we have to be able to listen to and be impacted by sermons that have impacted so many of you already. And to continue that. We believe that the Lord worked through them then. He continues to work through them now. They're available on Apple and Spotify. It's called the Landmark Podcast. We called it the Landmark Podcast based on Proverbs 22:28. Proverbs 22:28 says, do not move the ancient landmark that your fathers have set. This really speaks to not only the physical landmarkers of Israel, but really their whole constitution as a people. It was important for them to remember not to radically alter or redirect the people, but to honor the landmarks that the fathers had set in place for them, to remember those. And we want you to know here, as a staff, that we intend to do that here as well. I intend to carry the message of help, hope, and healing of Jesus for as long as I'm entrusted with it. I intend to reach the least likely people with the gospel. I intend to faithfully preach the word of God while exploring non-traditional methods. And my prayer for this church is that we would continue to be a place where both bankers and ditch diggers stand on level ground at the foot of the cross to worship the risen Savior. Amen? Our past matters. And if we're going to push into the future, we have to do so with a deep appreciation for all that God has already done here in the years past. And so on that note, let's look to the future. Let's think about some of these things that have been happening. I've got not one, but two exciting things to share with you concerning the future. The first has to do with the branding of the church. Now, let me quickly put to rest any immediate concerns. By branding, I do not mean the name. Okay? We're not changing our name. We're still City on a Hill. We intend to be City on a Hill for a long time. We're not changing that anytime soon. When we changed from Celebration Fellowship to City on a Hill, that was in 2012. I was here. I was a part of it. I remember it, and it made sense. What made us unique for a long time was the contemporary celebratory style of worship that the church began to move towards in the early 90s. Not a lot of churches were doing that, and the ones that were our snake-handling, chandelier-swinging friends, if you know what I mean. Baptists weren't doing this. Baptists still really aren't doing this, if we're being honest. But it was what made us unique at the time, and that name sort of captured that. Celebration. It's a celebration of worship. But that has changed over time. There are a lot of churches today that do a contemporary style of worship. But we've always been, at least since 1992, when the direction and the vision of this church radically altered to that of a hospital church. We have always been a church that strives to be a safe place, a refuge for the hurting and the lost, a place like the city set upon a hill that Jesus describes in Matthew 5:14. And so it made sense in 2012 to change our name to City on a Hill, and 11 years later, that still holds true. But we do think, however, that our logo can be updated. And the old logo will not go away immediately. You'll still see it in certain places. We have like the padding in the gym that we just got last year. We're not replacing that anytime soon. The sign is still out there for the time being. That's a pretty major task that might take some time to get updated. But we did want to update our logo. And again, we looked to the past for inspiration, actually to the building of the very building that we are standing in right now. One of the things about this building that I don't think has ever really gotten the exposure that it deserves is the front of the building. When you drive in, if you notice, in the very front of this building, there are multiple roof peaks that culminate with a cross at the very top. And that illustrates, I think, very well who we are. The cross above all things, right? Jesus above all things. And so after months of hard work and finally landing on something that we love, again, it is my privilege to show you for the first time the new City on a Hill logo. Very, very excited about this. We will have some immediate merchandise. We got car decals, so you can show us off. Now, let me just say something, okay, about this. If you have road rage, don't buy one. Can we agree to that? We don't need that. In fact, what are churches we don't like? Get those stickers and put them on your car. Get the Mormon sticker. Do they have stickers? Let's give the Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, I'm just kidding. We shouldn't do. We're not going to do that. We have car decals. We have some cups. We have some other goodies. Later in the fall, we'll have some shirts and hoodies again that are available with the new branding on it. But we're very pumped about this. I think that it's just a clean, nice emblem that really signifies who we are based on a physical landmark, which I think is really cool. How many of you have never noticed that part of the building until just seeing that just now? I'm just curious, because there are a few of you, I know. There's not many. Okay, so most of you, how many of you are like, oh yeah, that's the building? Good, okay. Excellent. How many of you don't care? Good, excellent. Glad to see that. Excellent. Excellent. The last thing that we have to discuss before we break into ministry groups, something that you may have noticed over the last, at least couple of months, is just the number of people coming to City on a Hill. There's a lot of people. We've grown. We continue to grow. We've had 16 baptisms in the last 4 weeks. We've had 30 so far this year, and that's not counting the 2 coming up Sunday. Yeah, we had, by contrast, 15 last year in total. So something is happening here. We can't really explain it. We're averaging 80 to 100 people more a Sunday this year than we were this time last year. Yeah, I mean, these are exciting things. YearLEAD, this particular YearLEAD, has almost 80 more people registered than it did last year. Yeah, it's huge. We have growth happening in the student ministry and the kids ministry. Our Life Bible studies are running out of room. Some of our rooms are at capacity. We have new people joining each month. The Lord is adding to us, and we're very grateful for that. It's an amazing thing that is happening here, but it does create space issues. One of the traditional metrics that we use in church administration is the 80% rule. Many of you are familiar with this. The 80% rule says that you will never grow beyond 80% capacity in a room. Meaning that in this room, 75 to 80% means that beyond that, you're probably not going to grow much more. New people who come in will not feel as comfortable. They will likely not come back. And veteran people who have been here a long time will not feel as necessary to invite new people to the church because it just feels full. Where else are they going to go? How are they going to fit? We are also not under any kind of delusion that COVID has changed these numbers. I've not seen any actual empirical studies done yet. I've been talking to the empirical research department at Southwestern to do this because I think it's desperately needed for churches to conduct a new survey that governs what these capacities really look like now. Because my intuition, and I think several people, pastors I've talked to would agree, it's probably somewhere more along the lines of 65 to 70%. COVID changed what personal space is for people, whether we like to admit it or not. We live in the South, in the Bible Belt. We don't even know what a mask is, right? But we have felt it here. And I know it's been felt further up north, where your sense of who is sitting around you is different than it was 5 years ago. It's just the way it is. And so with that being said, we know that about 250 people in this room starts to feel pretty snug. We've had a couple of events in here. We've had a couple of services where we've had that number. And I've watched families of 4 come in. I watched it 2 weeks ago during a baptism. A family of 4 come in, and it took over 2 minutes for them to figure out a place to sit because there wasn't 4 seats available. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. 250 feels about tight as we can get. Maybe a little more than that, but not much beyond that. We are right now hitting about 20 to 30 short of that marker in both of our services. And we're just now coming out of the summer. And once the fall starts and school gets into motion and people get back into routines, we're going to be starting a new sermon series, a verse-by-verse study through the book of Mark. We anticipate, as we do every fall, that more people will begin attending more consistently, and that will impact our capacity a great deal. And so with that being said, we've talked about it a long time. I don't think this is probably a surprise to anyone. Our elders have been praying about it for several months. We believe it is time to launch a 3rd service. And we propose October 1st. And these are the times that we are proposing: 8, 9:30, and 11. Now let me say a few things about this. If you remember, on Resurrection Sunday, we did 3 services. And we did 3 services for a few reasons, but one of them was to get a feel for what this would be like on a normal Sunday morning. And we learned some things from that morning. For instance, we learned that the times we chose for Resurrection Sunday are not the times we want to be married to for an indefinite amount of time in the future. At Resurrection Sunday, we did 8 o'clock, which was great. We did 9:15 and 10:30. And it felt very, very rushed to me personally. We did not like the way that felt. The service times were too close together. There wasn't enough time for cars to get in and out of the parking lot. It just felt rushed. And so our proposal is, again, 8, 9:30, and 11. This allows us to do a couple of things. For one, it's only, regardless of which service you currently attend, a 9 or 10:30, it's only 30 minutes later than what you're used to. Which, if we're being honest about your particular consistency and showing up to church on time, we're doing you favors, really, right? Yeah. I mean, we could just change the service times and only still keep 2 services and probably be in better shape. But if you are an early riser and you want to come to church an hour, what was that? Exactly. I should have, you're right. Yeah, so it's 7:30, 9, and 10:30. Right. That also means that the current model we have for our services will remain unchanged, meaning currently we design our services to be in a 90-minute block. They usually run about 71 to 72 minutes. Unless Dr. Reeves is preaching, that's about 87 to 88 minutes. I had to give you a little bit. That means that it will not change at all. They will remain the exact same in feel, the amount of time you have in between services to have conversations with folks, to get coffee, to get all the great things that are out there, and then to get to class or to leave, whichever you do, whatever your rhythm of life or routine does for you. It also means this, that the services will be identical. So we're not going to do like a traditional 8 a.m., and 2 contemporary services after that. We're not going to have multiple preachers. I will be preaching all 3. The worship is going to be the same. The elements of the service will be the same. The ministries offered will be the same. This is a really important detail for me personally. When I think about ecclesiology, the way the church should be structured from a biblical position, we are one church at City on a Hill. We're one body. And so it is very important to me theologically that regardless of which service you attend, you have the same experience at the 8, the 9:30, or the 11. What that means is that our kids ministry will also have availability in all 3 services. The 9 o'clock currently has a limited offering for all ages. That will be the same for the 8 and the 9:30. The 11 will be the kind of big, all hands on deck for the kids ministry. So it only adds just a handful of extra leaders needed for that. It also means that Life Bible Studies will be added into that 8 o'clock offering as well, to where, again, whether you show up to the 8, the 9:30, or the 11, you have the option of either going to a Bible study or to a worship service. After this talk, which is going to end in approximately 3 to 5 minutes, we are going to break off into ministry groups, into leadership groups, and we're going to discuss how this impacts your particular ministry. And so a lot of those details of how does this work in the kids ministry, how does this work in the youth ministry, how does this work for Bible studies, we're going to address those questions in there. Your ministry leads have been talking about this together as a staff for a very long time, trying to figure this stuff out. So we will have plenty of time to discuss those things together. But before we do that, here's my question for you tonight at YearLEAD 2023. Will you answer the call? Will you answer the call? God is adding to us. We have an opportunity to advance the Help, Hope, and Healing ministry in a very exciting way. The ministry that began all the way back in the early 80s and developed even further in the early 90s to see it reach even more families, to touch and change even more lives. But if we are to be successful, you have to understand this. We have to be unified in this. We have to be committed to it as a whole leadership team, as a church. It's going to feel like a step back in many ways. And I need you to be prepared for that. It's going to feel like we're going to walk in October 1st, new sermon series starting, Gospel of Mark. By the way, we have journal Bibles of the Gospel of Mark in the ESV, the version I preach out of. They're available now, $5 in the CLC. Grab one. It's going to be a great tool to go along verse by verse throughout this entire series through the Gospel of Mark. It's going to be a new era. It's going to be so exciting. We're going to come in here pumped up, ready to see what God is going to do. And you're going to come in this room, and there's going to be less people in this room than what you're used to, and less energy than what you're used to, and you're going to feel like, man, did we take a step back or what? Because we will have divided our people across 3 services rather than 2. You need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared for that because it's going to be very tempting for you to come in after that first Sunday and think, man, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we need to go back to 2 services. It's going to take time to build. It's going to take time for you to feel that energy again. But it's possible, and it will happen if you are committed to it. You have to be the driving force. You have to be the energy that motivates the people around you in your life, in your small groups, in your ministry groups, to encourage them to be excited about this potential change for this church. It also means that for some of you, you will potentially need to consider changing which service you attend. And here's why. We're going to survey the room tomorrow. We have a way by which we're going to do that. I'm not going to persuade you into any of those groups. I want you in that survey to just tell us which you prefer to go. If you had your druthers, this is what you would do. But the last thing that we want to see happen is like 175, 175, and about 30. Right? That will be really, really bad. That group will die real fast. We have to have, in my mind, I think it would be great, it would be ideal to have at least 100 people in each of those services. Your involvement matters here. It is crucial to the success of this decision. I can preach my heart out. I'm going to preach my heart out. We can plan great services, but if you're not committed to the vision of this change to reach more people over 3 services, we will not succeed. We're a body. Everybody's role is critical here. Everybody in the body of Christ matters. Clearly, the hand of the Lord is on us. We want to honor the landmarks of our fathers. We want to continue to advance the help, hope, and healing ministry of this church. This is a great opportunity for that to happen, but I need to know that you're on board with it. So by a show of hands, who is with us? Okay, maybe this was a bad idea. By a show of hands, who's not with us? Anyone? James 9, I knew it. You're only not with us because everyone else is, right? Of course. Let me do it this way, and please do not feel embarrassed. If you feel, I want you to feel heard. Right? It is important to me that you feel heard in this. This is not, at the end of the day, I need you to understand, if you're going to the 10:30, you're at church an extra 30 minutes. We were already being beaten to lunch by the Methodists before this, so it doesn't really matter. They only go to church for like 10 minutes. Man, I've taken shots at everyone tonight. Mormons, the Jehovah. What is my problem? I'm so sorry. It's only 30 minutes later. It's an hour earlier if you're an early riser, which is really great. I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not doing myself. I'm preaching all 3 of these services. There are going to be moments in that back room when I'm waiting for that 3rd service to go, why did we do this at YearLEAD in 2023? Why do we do this? But it is important for you to feel heard. And we do have the catch box ready. Kelsey has it. If you have questions about ministry groups, save them for your ministry groups. But if you have real critical evaluation that might change this decision for something that we have not thought about, then I am all for hearing that. I'm all for hearing that. I don't think this is a surprise to many people. I talked about this, I think, last year at YearLEAD 2022. And we thought, when this happens, we want to be ready. We've been talking about this for a year. We feel like the time is now. All right. I'm going to be announcing this on Sunday. October 1st is the start time for this new service model. 8, 9:30, and 11. Say it with me. 8, 9:30, and 11. And we're going to be here on time. And we're going to be excited. Now, let me just say, we're going to survey tomorrow. We're going to figure out where everyone naturally lands, at least in this group. And then once I have those numbers tallied up, we will begin to make suggestions on how many people we maybe need for the first service or the second or the third. I'm anticipating the 11 o'clock is going to be the busiest because that's just normally how it is. The 9:30 will also probably get a lot of love. It's the 8 but there are a lot of folks I know, just by a quick show of hands. How many of you like the idea of an 8 o'clock worship service? All right, so about good. All right. Praise the Lord. Exactly. All right, listen up. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pray for us, and then we are going to move into ministry groups. After I pray, we'll have a graphic up on the screen that will have room assignments. And so if you are not I'll address you in a moment. Let's pray, and then I'll give you some other instruction. Father, we are grateful. We praise your name. We recognize that you and you alone have the power to make great, to build, to establish, to move forward, to grow. Everything that we have that we offer you is yours by right. You've simply given it to us that we might surrender it back to you. And so, God, would you continue to establish us as we continue to get out of the way of your work and allow you to do the work that only you are capable of doing, to simply walk in obedience to what you've commanded us in the Scriptures, to be led by the truth of God's word, to be carried by the power of your Spirit for your gospel, for your glory, for our good. I thank you for every person in here and for their commitment to this church. I thank you for the testimony that these people have, the changed lives in this room are a testimony of your power and your love for your people. We recognize, God, that as you advance your church, we become more susceptible to attack. And so, God, would you protect these people? Would you protect their families? Would you protect their minds? For many of them, would you protect their sobriety? As we continue to push further and further this mission of the help, hope, and healing of Jesus Christ, your Son. How we love you, and we thank you. We pray these things in his name. Amen. Amen. All right, church, good morning. How we doing? Yeah. Now, I think it was Shirley who said that the reason why we began this at 8 as sort of a test run to see how the 8 a.m. service would go. And I got to confess to you, that was not a part of the plan, but it's a well-made point, and you have proven yourselves well done. Excellent job. Give yourself... That video, of course, was for the upcoming women's conference that we are hosting here September 29th and 30th, yes. And we're very excited about that. We do have a new episode of our monthly podcast that we have so affectionately called What the Hill is Happening. It is dropping in the first part of September, and on that episode, we interviewed Karen Yarnell, who is the Saturday speaker for that conference. And ladies, y'all are going to be just so blessed by Karen. She is just a wonderful human being, great sense of humor, really, really solid Bible teacher. I think you're going to really be blessed by everything that she has to say. The topic is one of my favorite topics of all time. Grace, harvesting grace is the theme for the whole weekend. And so if you have not signed up yet, please do so. Invite your friends. This is such a tremendous evangelistic opportunity to invite friends that you know that may not be connected to a church, that may not even know Jesus. And the great thing about this particular weekend is I think both the speakers and the topic yield itself really, really well to an exposure to Christianity to a non-believer. And so there's going to be, one of the things that Karen talked about in that interview is balancing grace and truth and the importance of that. Too much grace and you sort of move into, there's no law, there's no righteousness. Too much truth and it becomes unloving. And so having that balance of the two is fundamental, and I think you're going to really be blessed by that. So if you have someone, be praying about that. The Lord will put who he will on your heart, but if you would step out of your comfort zone and invite them to come to that event. It's $65. It's $45 for our single moms, and for this year we are offering the $45 cost to the 13 through 18-year-old girls. So younger girls, begin getting them into community with other women in this church and plugged into the heartbeat of the church. Really, really important that we do that. And so looking forward to that. We're going to begin our time this morning here in what we've called on the schedule the General Assembly, which honestly just feels a lot more Baptist than we probably are, but that's okay. It just works, it just works. And so we are going to do that here in a moment. I did want to put a QR code on the screen for you as promised from last night. We want to survey you to find out what service, without me prompting you to do anything, what service you would prefer to go to. And we would ask all of you do this. Don't well, I did it for both me and my spouse or whatever. I don't know that you can actually dictate that in one. Yeah, it's got to be individual. So we're going to make you do a little bit of work this morning, but it is important for us. I was really pleasantly surprised by the number of hands last night that indicated an interest in the 8 a.m. service, and so that's a great thing. And I think we got some good stuff in the works for offering Bible studies and children's ministry and all that good stuff. But this will be really helpful for us. We'll be able to collate this information into the 3 different service categories and figure out kind of where we fall with our leadership. And then we're going to likely do this as well tomorrow morning and maybe even for the next week. So I'm going to say this now. I'm going to say it again and again and again. Do not fill this out more than how many times? 1 time. Good. We want to try to cover as many people as we can, and so we are going to probably do this tomorrow at the welcome as well. So if you are here today and doing it, that means you are exempt from it. Now, I will say, just in the spirit of participation, it'd be helpful if you would put your phone up like you were scanning the QR code just to make your neighbor feel like they need to do it. And then once you're done, just like that, just like Aaron's doing, and then you can go back to Facebook and tune me out. It's totally fine. But we would love to know where everybody would desire to go if you had your choice, if you weren't asked to go somewhere else. I also want to say this, that once we get this figured out, if you commit to, let's say, the 8 a.m. service or the 9:30 service, we're not like taking attendance, right? So I want to be very clear about that. If you're like, Derrick, I'm coming to the 8, and 2 weeks later, you're on vacation, and you get in town the night before, and you're like, I don't really want to go to the 8, I'd rather go to the 11, then by all means, come to the 11. We're really just looking for, in general, a commitment to a service as we try to see those services expand. And so we're not going to be legalistic about it. It will not load if you're on the Wi-Fi, apparently. So this is another thing. Let's just talk about it. You know, So we prayed yesterday in the kitchen before this event took off about 4:15, and you know, it's in our experience, it is one of those things where when the Lord begins to do things in a church, it feels as if there are suddenly a lot of really wacky things that start happening. I'm not going to be a fundamentalist, but it's almost certainly demons. I'm just kidding, but it might be. We prayed yesterday at like 4:15, and then all 3 AC units in here went out. Our coffee machine exploded and leaked everywhere. We had a leak in the children's building, and our fire alarm went off, all within like 20 minutes. And so, yeah, par for the course, I suppose. But it just is what it is. The Wi-Fi is not working very well this morning. You know, this is it drives Mark Tice, our building and maintenance guy, crazy. Give him a hand. I will also say, and this was not as planned, I'd been thinking about this for at least a couple of weeks, but it is, I think, the right time. Tomorrow morning in our sermon series in Ultimate Road Trip, we are actually going to see Paul and Silas have an encounter with a demonic force, and we're going to think through that, what the Bible says about that. I think it's an appropriate time to do that, and so just be in prayer for the church, and we're not going to be distracted. We're not going to be drawn off course. If it's a little warm in here, or if the Wi-Fi doesn't work, then we'll celebrate with faithfulness, like, I don't know, 90% of the rest of the world in churches, right? So we'll feel very good about that. I want to kick us off this morning. After you do that survey, we're going to begin our General Assembly time here. And the goal of this is really quite simple. Each staff ministry head, not all of them are staff, but all ministry heads are going to have roughly 4 minutes, after which I will karate kick them off the stage. Verbally. Verbally, yeah. Verbally. Running jump kick. So the idea here is that when you begin serving at City on a Hill, you get plugged into a ministry. It's really common to be so vested in that ministry that you kind of almost get siloed off from the rest of the other ministries, not because you're disinterested, not in a mean way, but just because that's where your focus is. And then you come to church, and that's kind of your rhythm of life here. And what happens is there are ministries operating and things happening that so many of our other leaders are never aware of. And then there are several of you who participate in 2 different ministries at least. And when we do a leadership meeting like this, you end up having to choose one over the other, which is really frustrating as well. And so the idea of this morning and the workshops is try to give as many of you as much exposure to as many ministries as possible, just so that you're aware. Because even though you might serve in, let's say, the host team or the kids ministry team, you're still a leader alongside the Life Bible Study leaders and the life group leaders and so on and so forth. And we want you to be aware of what's happening in those ministries as well. And so we're going to hear from each ministry head for about 4 minutes is all we've got in order to keep the morning moving, which is really that's a song. You can say a lot in the length of a song. So we will begin our time here this morning, first and foremost, with our student minister pastor. Is that right? Welcome to the stage, Aaron Nelson. All right. Boo. Chris is first. Aaron, come over here and sit down next to me. I'm sorry. I was looking for my list and I couldn't do that. Sorry. Chris, Brian, you're actually not even up next. Go sit down. You go ahead and have a seat over, or you're at the
stand over here?
stand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're at the stand. Sorry.
We're really organized, really. All right, I guess my time has started, so I will make the most of this 4 minutes. So, we have so many service opportunities that we're not going to get to talk about this morning. But, it was exciting last night, wasn't it, to hear all the things that's going on, the growth that's happening here. And obviously that means we're going to need more people to step in to help in the host team, in the children's ministry, youth ministry. And you're going to get to hear about that here a little bit this morning. What I'm going to talk about is our life groups and our outreach, particularly via Bless Every Home. And I'll give you a little update on that. So our life groups, we have 12 life groups, which currently host about 180 people. Okay, so our life groups throughout the week meet in homes. If you don't know much about our life groups, they meet in homes at least once every 2 weeks. Not every group meets on a weekly basis. It's just an opportunity for us to do life together. Put your hand up if you are currently in a life group. Okay, all right. So I'm preaching to the choir a little bit and talking about how great life groups are, right? That's where the one another's are really lived out. And it's just an amazing time for us to have fellowship with one another, to pray with one another, to help each other out, to encourage one another with the things that's just going on in our everyday lives. And, if we have about 180 people in life groups, with 12 life groups, to me that says we need to add probably about another 8 life groups. If we're going to be a church that enables everybody the chance to experience, those of you who put your hand up, to be in a life group and to experience those things, then we're going to need to begin to add life groups, at least 8 here in the next year would be our goal. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to change the multiply model, because the multiply model actually right now consists of dividing and taking away and splitting people up. And so we're going to talk in our session today. Okay, if you come to the workshop, you will hear how to train anyone in anything. And one of the things we're going to talk about is how do we train people in your life group to go and lead a life group, to go, not take a whole half of your life group away, but how do we train someone in your life group to start a life group? And if you are not in a life group, we're going to invite you to come to that workshop today also, because we're going to try and convince you to join a life group with the intent of leaving it, to go and start a new life group. All right. So the session today is every member's responsibility in life group. It's not just our life group leaders that need to make any changes as our church grows. In fact, they're the ones that don't need to make much of a change. It's those who are in a life group that have shown an unwillingness to leave to start a new group. My prayer is that your heart is going to change, because we need new life groups. Okay, that's the be-all and end-all of really what we're doing as we move forward. We're really needing to add life groups so we can continue to minister to people that way. And at Bless Every Home, I want to just congratulate you all. 25,000 prayers have been prayed for our neighbors here in Fort Worth. It's a really cool thing. 150 of you have signed up to Bless Every Home to be praying for your neighbors. You're getting those daily emails with 5 different neighbors each day that you can pray a specific prayer over. Some of you have been doing prayer walking. Some of you are praying from your office, some from your home in your quiet time. And this is a great thing. This is what we hoped would happen at the very beginning. And the next steps for us, though, now is to begin to introduce ourselves to those people that we've been praying for, and to begin to knock on their door and welcome them to the neighborhood. If they are new movers, you're going to be receiving emails to tell you somebody new has moved into your neighborhood. Some of you have received those and are like, put it aside, because we haven't talked a lot about it. And so we are going to be doing more training as the year progresses and as we move into 2024. We want to do some more training for you on going door to door, introducing yourself, asking people how you can pray for them, and then ultimately sharing the gospel with those people. And so that's where we are with Bless Every Home. We know that there is training that's needed. We're going to touch on this a little bit in the workshop today as well. But mostly what is needed isn't training. Mostly what is needed is courage. Okay, it's courage. And as you've been spending your time praying for your neighbors, I've been praying for you. That as you receive these new emails for people who have just moved into the neighborhood, that you would find the courage to respond to the Holy Spirit and go and knock on those doors and introduce yourself and introduce Jesus to them. Was that 4 minutes?
You were a little over, but you're okay. We
All right,
you.
okay, good.
Here,
I'm fired? Okay, no.
Well, since Chris was over, I'll go under. How's that? Because I duck under things anyway. So, Aaron, I want you up on the stage. Okay, so we're going to talk about freedom groups real quick. Freedom groups start in 2 weeks. Thank you very much for that one. Sheila, shout out. Someone's excited. It's the pastor's wife. Great. Yeah, they start September 6th. And so check out those that freedom group card out there. Go to the app. See what's coming up. There's some really cool groups. One of the ones coming up is one we've never done before about forgiveness. And that is going to be impactful. Sarah's excited too, and I'm excited about that because that really is something we've dealt with in some of the books, but not really in depth in one whole study. So we're pretty excited about that rolling out for the first time. We're putting together another one for the spring called Constructive Conflict. And how to, instead of avoid conflict, actually lean into conflict. Not just in your marriage, but at work, with your kids, in every relationship. And it's going to teach you how to actually do that effectively in a healthy manner. Okay? So kind of keep an eye out for that. Prodigal parents coming out. So if you have a kiddo that is struggling and you're not sure what to do, and you need to find community in that. And so check out those different groups that are coming up. I want you to do that. Not only sign up, but this is the important thing. Along with what Chris was saying, there are neighbors you have, there are people at your work, there are family members that need this. That doesn't mean they have to come to church here. That doesn't mean they have to be the same denomination. That doesn't mean they have to be Christians. Got it? They need what we have. They need hope. And I promise you, every person you encounter needs hope. And what I believe this does is it opens that door to a hope that they've never experienced before. And our goal, these are Christ-centered groups. Our goal, of course, is for them to be introduced to the author of hope. But first, they have to have a felt need met. That's where you come in. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you in the first or second session. All right, Aaron?
Thank you, Brian. Just when I thought I was done, they call me right back up. Can you believe it? I am Aaron Nelson. I am the student pastor here. I think I know every single one of you. I love you, random citizen. My nickname is Sweaty Already because all of our youth leaders have nicknames, and that's mine. Shut your beautiful mouth. Can you guys imagine if I had to get up here yesterday when the AC was broken? I'm a puddle right now. I would have melted yesterday. Anyways, let's get into it. So we just finished up our summer camps this season, and it was awesome, guys. It was so much fun. We did extreme game shows. We had a really good time talking about sweating. Good Lord, it's hot. I'm ready for winter. Anyways, summer camp was great. So for you guys who don't know, we meet, City Lights Youth meets Sunday and Wednesday. Sunday mornings, we are going through the Life Bible Study, just like the other Bible studies here at the church. Who's doing that, by the way? Who's doing the Life Bible Study? You should all be raising your hand. You're welcome. It's good stuff, guys. It's great material. The kids get a lot out of it. So do we as leaders. You know, when we're teaching and we're going through it, preparing throughout the week, we get a ton out of it, just like the kids do. So that's our Sundays. On Wednesdays, we have been doing freedom groups. We just did our first round of freedom groups this past summer. They were so good. We were just talking last night in our leader rally group meeting, just how good it was. The culture that is in our youth group is unlike most youth groups that I've been a part of or that I've experienced. We've got a lot of really good kids. We've got great leaders. And it's the culture of the church, you know. I was telling them yesterday, I've got a vision statement that I wrote when I first got here. And yesterday I was thinking, maybe I need to make a mission statement for us. And then I realized, no, I don't. The mission statement of the church is the same mission statement for the kids, for the youth. It's tailored towards them. And so that was our why. That's why we do what we do, because we love these kids and we want them to experience the same things that we're experiencing. And so those freedom groups were amazing. They were freaking awesome. I'm going to sound like a broken record because I'm just going to talk about how awesome it was, but it was so freaking awesome. It was so good. So that's our Wednesday and Sundays. Wednesday from now on, we're going to start doing our normal thing again, which is a teaching series. We were trying to get worship, but Caleb bailed on us. I'm just kidding, Caleb. I love you. If you guys see Caleb, give him a hard time. Say, hey, you should really do worship with the youth. I'm just kidding. I love you. I love you so much, except for the Dodgers. The Dodgers suck, and you do too. Anyways, go Rangers. I don't have my Rangers hat on. Anyways, what'd you say? Don't talk to me. Anyways. That's our Wednesdays from now on. We've got fall retreat coming up, which is going to be amazing. The ranch, when it's cold, is one of the most beautiful places in Texas, and we love it. But that's youth ministry in a shell. What I need from you guys, what we need from you guys is we need prayer, right? What Derrick was saying earlier about it seems like when you start taking a stand, you start trying to do what the Lord has called you to do in your life. A lot of crazy things start happening. We experience that at summer camp every year as we're getting ready for summer camp. Things start going crazy. They go haywire. And so we as a ministry group, we as leaders pray heavily for our students, for whatever we've got coming up, summer camp, fall retreat, and just ask God to work. And that doesn't mean that everything goes right, because it's never going to. There's always going to be crazy stuff that happens. But just pray for us in those things. And then the second thing we need is more leaders. So I consider you all youth group leaders now. I told you the service times already. We'll see you there. Thanks, guys.
It's right up here. Hi. So, well, this is a part of being the host team. Use your microphone. Why? No, my name is Cherie. I'm the leader of the host team. I have an amazing team, probably the best team here. There you go. That's my cheerleader. But no, I'm just here to talk about what we do. We're the front line. We're like the gateway into serving. So we answer all the questions. We make people feel safe as they come in. That's where that safe community vibe come from. I have several different positions that everybody is on, you know, from the doors to hospitality, which Miss Jeannie leads the hospitality team, which is amazing. So any of the food you see out there or anything like that, that's her and her girls. They need more help. The CLC, which is the City Life Center, I know everybody keeps calling it the home point or whatever it was before. Every time I say CLC, what is that? It's the open area that has all the Freedom Group books, t-shirts, whatever. You can serve in there too. Even if you're not like a talker or peppy like Carrie, you can serve on the host team. We also, if you don't have the time to do it every week, we don't require you to do it every week. You can do every other month. You can do every other week. You can do one time a month, whatever you want to do. But we need people to come in and make people feel at home. My breakout will be in B101, and we'll kind of get into fleshing out a lot of how that looks and how you act as a host, the do's and don'ts kind of thing. So if you want to join us, come and join us in B101. It's still the best team.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? I'm going to do my best here because my role here is to sing, not talk. So I really don't know what I'm doing. Anyways, glad you guys are here. I've got 5 things for you guys. We're going to get through it together. Number one, my role here, my title is worship pastor, but I am blessed to kind of oversee a lot of our creative ministries here at City on a Hill. And I work with a wonderful, wonderful team on my creative team of Shamika Samuels, Morgan Phillips, and RJ Andrade. And let's give it up for them. Love them a lot. I wanted to point out our online ministry has been really, really blessed. We have built a YouTube following of, I think we're like at 1,100 subscribers now on YouTube. And what is crazy, and we don't talk about this a lot, but we have around usually about 300 to 400 people that watch our services online every week. So God has been really using our media and online ministries a lot. And for all of you who serve in any of that capacity, I just wanted to say thank you. God is being faithful with your service to our church. So thank you for that. And thank you to my creative team for all the crazy things I put you guys through. So you guys make things happen around here. Events, I wanted to go over this. God's been really faithful in several of the events that we've done this year, from our Hope Conference, the Hope Gathering that we had earlier this year, to Easter. You guys saw we did 3 services during Easter with a bunch of new things in here, from screens to speakers and everything. God has been really just faithful in all of those moments. And I also wanted to say, you guys may not fully know this, but we lost a huge portion of our roof back in, was it March? In March. And we had several pieces of equipment that were completely just soaked. We literally unplugged my keyboard and turned it upside down for about 2 or 3 weeks. And somehow we only lost something like a couple $100 worth of equipment in all of that. And it rained in here all night. And so God's just been really good through all of that. And I know that moving forward with our night of worship on the 17th, which I hope you guys can all come to, he's going to continue to be good. So thirdly, I wanted to make you guys aware of something. So on Wednesday nights in this space at 6 p.m., we have something called R&R. It is a time, it's called our rest and recover service. See, sing, not talk. And it's a time for you to come and have some alone time with the Lord. We have some very chill music playing, and then I usually lead one song. We are moving the time of that service on Wednesdays back 15 minutes to 6:15, and it's going to just run all the way up to Freedom Groups. The reason we're doing that is it's felt like people don't feel comfortable coming in once we've started, it's like, oh, it's past 6, I can't go in there. I'll disturb someone. And I want to say, as our worship pastor, it is designed as a come and go type of situation. If you're late and you need some time with the Lord, come on in. We've got a spot for you. Just come on in. It's really one of my favorite times during the week. Fourth, let's see here. I want to say, if you are creatively gifted, whether that be in tech, music, or singing, we have a spot for you to serve on the worship and tech teams. I think there is a thought that it's an exclusive group. It's not. If you're talented, it is my role to find a space for you to serve. And let me say, with 3 services coming up, it is my commitment to my worship and tech teams to be a good steward of their time and not to overburden them. I do that by having more people. So if you are willing to get up early for the Lord 1 Sunday a week, come talk to me. It is a joy. That is my time. Come hit me up in a breakout. My breakouts are some specialized training for my camera people and for my vocalist. And if that sounds interesting to you and you just want to learn, come holler at me. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
This is actually my first time up here. Hi, how's it going? I am the leader of the Sheepdogs, the ministry, and with all that being said, I hand it over to EJ.
Okay. So, one of the core values of the Sheepdog Ministry is we try to put you in positions where you can exercise your gifts. And not necessarily exercise gifts that you don't care to exercise. And, so we honor that. Thank you, Keenan. Keenan is the leader of the Sheepdog Ministry. I'm just his work wife. I don't do any of this stuff. I just have his back when he needs me. So he doesn't do people, I do. So here we are. Love you, Keenan. Okay, Sheepdog Ministry. I think most folks know what that is, but if you don't, think in terms of, we talk a lot here about a safe place and safe process. Generally, the context of safe place and safe process is a safe place to share what's going on in your life, the truth of who I am, what's going on, and then a safe process to actually deal with it, right? But safe place and safe process also assumes that this is physically a safe place. And not just safe, but that people can feel safe. So visitors, members alike, can actually feel safe. And so that's part of the mission of what we do. We think of ourselves in the Sheepdog Ministry as really more of an extension of the host team, functionally, but with a little bit of a different focus. So let me talk a little bit about what it takes to be a sheepdog. Again, we don't try to impose things on you that you're not qualified for or don't want to do and that sort of thing, so we meet you where you're at. If you are an observant person, awesome, we got a place for you. If you've got the heart of a protector, we've got a place for you. You don't have to be some martial arts expert or, John Wick shooter or, something like that's just, folks, there are, let me give this some perspective. A lot of times folks are like, ooh, sheepdog, like what if there's a shooting or something? Like, folks, I was researching this week and I saw there are 55 million worship services in the United States every year. There are precisely 2 shootings. Folks, you don't have to be John Wick to be on the Sheepdog Ministry. That's just not, okay. So, having said that, there are a couple of us that are trained and practiced and all that jazz, so we don't poo-poo it just because statistically it'll never happen. We do prepare for it, but that's not, you don't have to be. I do want to point out, if you want to be part of the Sheepdog Ministry, you have an interest, see Keenan. I don't keep up with what's going on with the Sheepdog Ministry. I don't. Keenan does. Part of the benefits of it, though, is we are offering this year, we're going to have a series of trainings covering communications, de-escalation, medical, basics of firearms. We have experts in each of these areas who are going to be training us. This is I mean, you would easily spend, I don't know, at least $1,000 or more on the training that you receive. And I hope to be able to open that up, parts of it anyway, to the rest of the congregation. But if you're just aware, if you want to be a part of it, come check us out. Talk to Keenan, and we'll get you plugged in. And then finally today, I'm 13 seconds over, we are going to be meeting in room B201, not the one that's listed out there. So B201 over in the other building. And we'll see you there. Did I miss anything, sir? All right.
Good morning. We got a lot of things going on with our kids, so I'm excited to share about that. We got a lot of changes. So first of all, I'm excited to let you guys know I have a new assistant. I'm really excited to embarrass her publicly, first of all. So Ashley Turner, stand up for me. So this is actually Ashley's first week, so she's just right in there getting stuck in, but she's going to do an awesome job serving with me over on City Kids. So a lot of things coming up. So obviously 3 services is going to impact the kids ministry. So I want to share, first of all, my philosophy for children's ministry is we're about child discipleship. We're not about child care. Okay, so we want to make the most of every time that we have kids in our building. We want to make the most about teaching them about Jesus, helping them grow into a relationship with him and learning more about him. And so for 3 services, my heart and my goal is that we will provide something for every age group of kids that come into our building, so that there won't be a single service where if guests come with older kids that they get turned away, or we don't have anything for this service, you're going to have to come to another. So for the 8, the 9:30, and the 11, we will have an offering for babies through to 5th grade. So if you know people or you invite people, it doesn't matter which service they come to. It's going to look a little different at the different services. Obviously, I'm anticipating at 11 a.m. will be our bigger offering with more classes. 8 a.m. I'm anticipating probably not a lot of people, but we will have something of substance that we're going to be teaching them every service that we have. The other thing, Awana, we launched Awana 3 weeks ago. It's been a really great learning curve. It's a very different program to anything that we've run before, but for the last 3 weeks I've been watching. We've had about 31 kids attending on Wednesday night, which is higher numbers than we ever have had in the past, at least as long as I've been here for Wednesdays. And just seeing kids getting excited about learning the Word and learning Bible verses, and they come in with their books and they're like, I got it, I nailed it. And there's just something about hearing a 7-year-old repeat back to you John 3:16 and talking with them about what it means, and they've got it in their mind and they've got it in their heart. It's so cool. So we do need more people to help with that, specifically to hear kids read their verses. That's kind of like a time-consuming part, obviously, with our classes. So if you're like, I don't teach but I love the Word and I would love to listen to kids and help them learn a scripture, then come talk to me. You wouldn't even need to volunteer for the whole evening. It's just a part of the evening that we do that. But it's really cool just to see them putting the Word of God in their hearts at such a young age. And then 2 big changes that are coming that I just want to make you aware of. We'll be announcing it closer to the time. But the first is that we are moving kids camp. So, yeah, I'm really excited. Aaron talked about, the ranch is really nice when it's not 100 degrees, and Kids Camp is going to experience that this year. I'm so excited. So the first weekend of spring break, we will be headed out to the ranch for Kids Camp. I'm really excited. Obviously, things look different from when we used to take kids to camp. When we went to a camp where they ran everything for us, our workload was down here, and now we run our own camp from start to finish. June and Aaron understand it; they did too. It's up here on the workload. So we're going to put some distance between kids camp and VBS so that we can give our very best to both of those things. So kids camp, we are also changing the age range we're taking. So we are going to limit it to 3rd through 5th grade. Just for the age of kids, we need them to just be a little bit more self-sufficient, able to take care of themselves. And so it's likely going to be a smaller camp, which I'm okay with. It's going to be really intentional. We're going to get to go deep with them, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We might be able to do things like go out on a hike and be outdoors at the ranch, which is going to be lovely. So that's the first thing. The second is a big change to Vacation Bible School. So it's going to be right at the beginning of the summer, but this year coming up, we are going to trial a 3-day daytime VBS. So it won't be in the evenings like we've done historically, but I met with some of the elders and some of the staff to just discuss this idea of what might it look like in terms of involvement for all of our families and for the community if we did it during the daytime. So this year we're going to be trialing that to see how we help with specifically, especially our daycare, getting them involved. So it'll be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday daytime that we're going to be doing Vacation Bible School. So please be praying for that. That's a big change. I know sometimes when we do big changes like this, not everybody's happy about it. And so it's been a very well thought through, very well prayed about decision. So I believe it's important for us to try it this year and see what that looks like for our families and for our community. But be praying for us, just that God would be just in the midst of that too. So thank you guys so much.
All right. I'd like to point out that Life Bible Study Ministry is the only ministry with the words Bible and study in them. So while all the other ministries talk about the Bible, we actually study it. Come on, guys, that was a joke. Boo. Wasn't a good one? Where are my leaders at? You should be backing me up here. We are having a great time with our Bible study ministries. In fact, our main problem right now is spacing, and we talked last night a little bit about that. Our groups are going to be, group leaders are going to be surveying their groups here starting tomorrow and over the next couple of weeks to figure out if any of those groups have any interest in shifting times to an earlier service. We do want to offer one Bible study at least for every service. So starting October 1st during the 8, 9:30, and 11, it's important that we have, in my mind, at least one Bible study per service for people to go to. I do already have one person who is committed to lead one during the 8 a.m., so we have that issue settled. It's a question of whether or not we have one or two more added to that. The other issue is just leadership, and really it's not a matter of do we have enough leaders as much as can we mobilize those leaders to break away from groups that are really meaningful to them to begin new groups. That's one of the challenges of any group ministry in a church setting where when you want to multiply, like Chris talked about in the beginning, a group, it requires you leaving a group that you've become very fond of, right? You've had lots of relationships develop. You've had that sort of be a part of your routine over sometimes years. And to move out of that seems scary. It seems very challenging. Do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to tell you that if you're not going to Wednesday night groups, that we do have a Wednesday night Bible study.
That is true. Yes, we do have a Wednesday night group as well in actually 102 for people who traditionally serve and come to church and just can't fit that into the Sunday morning routine, or just if that's a better time for you. That is a great point as well. Several of you have mentioned that the third service allows for those of you who are serving to also do a Bible study as well. And that is true. I mean, it seems a little crazy to be here for all three services. I'm here for all three services, so join me, and you'll only drink coffee. It's team coffee. It's it is an opportunity for you to do that. But we do have a lot of great leaders in our groups, and so our teams are going to be praying through what that looks like and the potential of breaking off and starting a new group and maybe taking one or two people from several groups to form one. I'm not opposed to that. I did have some concern from some folks that were like, I really don't want our group to be moved to a different time. My commitment to you is I'm not gonna make any groups move. Your groups are doing well right now. They're successful right now because of where you are and the timing, and I don't want to mess that up unless your group is willing and wanting to do that. We are studying Luke. We've been in Luke for I just wrote session 79 this week. So, yeah. Yay! 86 sessions total, so we're coming close to the end. I announced to my leaders last night that about 3 weeks ago, I was brought to Odessa, Texas, to Pathway Baptist Church. They are officially adopting the Bible studies that we write here for their Sunday school, which is really cool. So I trained their leaders on how to utilize that. They picked the worst study I've written so far in the book of Judges, and it's not really what I wrote, more of what God wrote and what people did, but it's what they want to study. So here we are. We are going to be studying after Luke, Christ in the Old Testament for about 8 weeks. It's the first time we will divert from a verse-by-verse approach, but it is a topic that I think is important. And then we will be beginning the book of Exodus shortly thereafter. And so got a lot of great things planned for the Bible study ministry. My workshop today is how to prepare to teach and preach through the Bible. And I'm going to give you my methodology and how I think about Scripture and how I approach Scripture when I am planning on teaching and preaching, and I'm going to give you some very practical ways of working through the text before you present it in whatever context you are in. Trying to think if there is anything else. We are doing wonderfully on time right now. Has this been helpful for you to hear a little bit from the different ministry leaders? Give them a round of applause. I think we will go ahead and we'll give you guys about 15 minutes until the next workshop starts. Our first workshops begin at 9:45. If you have not signed up for one of those, please do so before we begin. The locations for those groups will also be on the screen here momentarily. So if you forget where you're supposed to go, there they are. Look at that. And then keep in mind that will go from about 9:45 to 10:45. You'll have about 15 minutes. We'll do workshop number 2 at 11, and we are committed to getting you out of here at noon. Some of our ministry groups are going out to lunch afterwards. It's on your own dime. But if you do want to meet together in groups, we encourage that. That's always a great time. Let me pray for us, and we will move on to the next portion of the morning. Father, thank you for this morning. Thank you for your goodness to us. Thank you that you are a God that hears our prayers and responds and leads through your real presence of your Spirit. We're grateful, God, that you reign here at City on a Hill, and that we trust you, and that we want to follow you, that we don't want to be drawn off sides. We don't want any distractions, God. We want to be focused and committed to who you are and what you've called us to. And so I just thank you for the sense of excitement and commitment here among these leaders. And pray, God, that as we continue to move through this year, that these ministries would only increase in their influence in not only the church, but in the community. And that these workshops today in particular would help us in fulfilling our role from the pastoral staff to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. And so we look to honor you in all that we do, and we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.